Was this week positive for Auburn?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. We were dapping it up this Friday with the Darrell Dapprich, Montgomery radio legend. Auburn surprisingly got the respect that it deserves with something. We'll talk about that in a moment. But look, there's a lot of chatter throughout this week, and I've done a few shows on it already this week, Darrell, about Auburn and the recruiting trail. Like the start of this week, it felt a little weird, and then you lose some commitments. You lose Carday Smith drops out of the class. Lose out on Arnaud. He goes to USC. It seems like USC's picked up all the momentum for Juju Lewis. It feels like Auburn lost momentum this week. I don't think it's the end of the world, but they did seem to lose some momentum going into the dead period.
The strange thing about momentum is you can lose it quickly and you can gain it back quickly too. So let's remember this is a roller coaster. But for the sake of this, for the sake of this argument, yes, Auburn lost momentum. We even mentioned the Caleb Cunningham situation, which he leaves Auburn saying that Auburn's his leader, and then he leaves out. So here's the thing. There's a lot of different factors that could play into this. But to say that Auburn, where they were when we recorded the Alvin Henderson show last
week ago,
we were talking top 4 class, right? Now Auburn's hanging on with the top 10 class, and there's some things that are some unknowns. We'll never know, and we'll never be able to quantify what the direct reasons are or factors, okay? Mm-hmm. But I'm just going to say this. I'm not saying that this is a factor. I'm saying that this could be true separately of the fact. I do believe Auburn's lost momentum, but I do believe it's not the end of the world. I'm not panicking because, again, what's that expression with baseball? Your momentum's only as good as your next day's starting pitcher. That's this. Your momentum in recruiting is only as good as your next 4-star recruit. So that can happen, and it can happen rather quickly. So that can change. I'm not worried about that. But what I am going to say is there is some head scratching arguments to be made or questions to be made as to why Auburn, number one, seems to have this theory or this policy to spread out kids' commitments. Meaning, Zach, somebody wants to commit, they're ready to commit, and Auburn says, hold off, let's spread these out a little bit for perception or whatever. That absolutely drives me crazy. If the kid's ready to commit and sort it out later. Okay, take his commitment and let's go. Sometimes it comes back to bite you in the butt when you make the kid wait and he falls in love with another school. And we're seeing that with like Scroggins right now, being fully transparent. Okay.
But don't you think, I like it because I think perception is everything in recruiting and messaging and all of that. So I'm a fan of spreading it out. Don't you think, though, okay, if somebody's going to publicly commit to you and you say, hold on, let's wait 2 weeks so we can spread this out. And in the meantime, they take that visit, they're somewhere else. They're probably taking that visit somewhere else anyway. And they're probably going to be a flip candidate that other people see anyway if you're going to lose them. I can't imagine them just because they didn't put out a graphic. They're like, okay, yeah, I'm committed to you 100%. I question the legitimacy of the commitment or the hypothetical commitment. Anyway, like if you lose a kid because of that, you're probably not going to hold on to him anyway.
Well, that's a fair statement, except that maybe this kid can get a little bit put off by the fact that he was emotionally ready to commit. A lot of these kids make emotional decisions. Sure. You tell him to put off, and then he falls in love with somebody else on the next visit and then commits. Now, the argument is true and is valid. Was he really ever going to commit to Auburn to begin with if the first stray eye that he catches? I don't know, but I say why roll the dice and gamble on that?
That's fair.
With the Charlie 5 famous expression about a bird in the hand, he actually said 2 birds in the hand, 2 birds in the bush. That was classic. But you take it when you can get it. I don't want to leave things to chance. And I know people say, oh, that's overblown. He's taking his visit anyway. Let him take his visit with the graphic out there that he's already committed to Auburn. I think it matters. And I think it also draws other players. That's the first thing that bothers me. The second thing that bothers me is if you spread out these visits, Auburn would have had an opportunity to have some kids on campus the last weekend before the dead period. And the argument, the pushback on that is, well, they were going to visit the week before anyway. Who else are you going to bring? Well, if you're telling me that the only kids Auburn is recruiting is the kids that have already been on campus, I think that's naive. I think you have an opportunity to spread out visits and go get more kids to visit that maybe you're targeting, plan Bs, plan Cs. And what's it going to hurt? What's it going to hurt to go ahead and work that last weekend before the dead period? I just think that it's something that, might need to be looked at closer as far as bringing these kids in and spreading it out a little bit and going to get kids that maybe they may not have come and maybe went somewhere else, Zach, and that's where the argument is, where they were going to Miami or USC, whatever, because they didn't think they had the option because Auburn wasn't hosting recruits the weekend before the dead period.
You never know. I thought it was odd. I mean, it goes against everything that Hugh Freeze has done since he's been here, to take a weekend going into a dead period off. Like, that's so not how they've built everything that they've built in this year and a half. It goes against everything he's done.
Well, and for those that make the argument, please listen to me closely. The invalidation of the argument that says he's worked his tail off, trust him, look what he did last year when they did the exact same thing, what weekend they took, and he deserves a break. I'm not saying he doesn't. I 100% agree. I'm just saying, what would it hurt if you took the break when the rest of the world's breaking and it's dead period? To me, a dead period screams, get off and get you some rest. There's nothing you can do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. I don't understand the philosophy. I'm not saying that it's going to hurt Auburn from having a top 5 class. I'm not saying that he didn't do this last year and it still worked out great. And I'm not saying that I can even put a finger on it, and that's the reason why Auburn's lost some momentum. I'm saying, why chance it, though?
Mm-hmm.
Why roll the dice? Be there the last weekend with the last impression and spread these out a little bit, and then go take your well-earned rest that you deserve.
Right. Yeah, so, I mean, we'll see. We both agree Auburn lost momentum. Will they get it back? I think so. I think they'll get it back quickly, Darrell. Just a gut reaction. But as far as looking at just this week, which is the daily show, we're talking about what's happening day by day. Yeah, they did lose some momentum. Yep. And I think it was a net negative on the recruiting trail. Will the next few weeks be net positive? Probably. And I think Auburn will still have a top 8, potentially top 5 class when it's all said and done. Hey, Auburn finally got some positive recognition. I'm shocked. That's coming up right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Darrell, can you imagine? Can you imagine buying any car part for your car, truck, or SUV anywhere other than eBay Motors? Can you imagine that?
No, because it's such a simple process. Anybody that's ever tried to go to these auto retail stores lately and get help, good luck with that. When you can sit in your home in your underwear and type in your car and the part number you need, and bam, it gets delivered to your house. You got to leave.
Yeah,
and try to find help.
Every time I go to one of the brick and mortar places, they have to order it anyway. It's like, well, you just do it.
I just feel stupid when I go to those places. I just do. I'm just like, I'm clueless. I'm walking up and down the aisles. I'm trying to get someone to help me.
Right.
From my computer, very simple.
Yep. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit only available to U.S. customers. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time is yes. Game Time is the best place to buy tickets, whether it's for concerts, for sporting events. It doesn't matter what it is. They're actually like a licensed, authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball. The tickets go down as you get closer to first pitch. So a lot of the folks that listen here around the Atlanta area. So if you got a hankering to go to a Braves game, open the Game Time app. Say, oh man, these tickets are cheap. They're cheap. Take advantage of it. They've always got the lightning deals, Darrell, that you're a fan of as well. There are always deals happening within the app. So use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. There's a lot of lists out there, and some of these I just haven't talked about, even though Auburn's been in it. And like the home field advantage when Jordan Hare Stadium being so low is ridiculous. But this is what I do want to talk about. They put out the defensive power rankings for the new college football video game that's coming out. They put out the top 25, and Auburn comes in at 17th with an 86 overall defense, which is exciting. I think Auburn is worthy of this rating. I think they will be a top 20 defense when it's all said and done. I didn't expect them to get the recognition of that, though. So tip of the cap to EA Sports.
Yeah, we're a little jaded because can't get no love and get so disrespected. So you don't expect it. And when it comes, it's such a pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
I was surprised, but I also agree with it. And I think Auburn can creep into the top 15 by the end of the year. If some of the things we talked about before when a different show with pass rush can happen. I want you to, Zach, could you imagine?
Ooh. Can you imagine?
A defense that Auburn has its top 15 and their offense just as respectable to get in the top 30. What does that look like from an Auburn football team and its record potentially? That's what I'm looking at, is just offense come along with that, a defense that's top 15.
Yeah.
It could be a year of exceeding expectations.
Yeah. I don't think there's any way Auburn has a top 30 offense. I just don't see the path to that. But boy, if it does, 9-3 is 100% or better is on the table. 100%.
And I think that this defense is going to be chaotic. It's going to be disruptive. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch as a fan. And I think it's going to be better in November than it is in September, because I think there are some dudes that are freshmen. Your Wallers, your Barbers, your Riddicks, some of these guys, maybe a Blockton, maybe Crawford in the secondary, who you're very, very high on.
Yeah.
Some of these guys that are a little younger that are going to get some playing time. They're going to mature and grow up by the time of November when you're counting on them for depth. And when that depth comes in the game, there's not a drop off. That defense could be better in November than it is in September.
Sure.
And that's why I think it could definitely creep into the top 15. And if it does that and Auburn's offense is just solid, it could be special.
Yeah, it could be fun. It could definitely be fun. Something about, the video game, and I'm sure it's going to be different than it was when it last came out 10 years ago, but I played the stew out of those games, is the game really valued age and experience. And so your upperclassmen obviously ranked, you get like points that you shoot up in stats at the end of every year. So every time you kept somebody, they would go up more and more. And Auburn just has such an old defense. Just such an old defense with 5 seniors on the defensive line, with several, with 3 upperclassmen edge guys, the linebackers and the defensive back. It's just an old unit. And that probably has something to do with how EA Sports kind of scored their overall talents and skills and stats within the game. But I think there's a lesson in that. Whereas, there's a bunch of, these are a bunch of veteran players that all played on different teams a year ago. And some of them, they're playing on their 3rd team in college football. But these guys know college football. They've lived it for 4 or 5 years, the last 4 or 5 years of their life. And I think that's something to be excited about.
I do. And, when we looked at depth charts, we were just very much overtaken by how many seniors were on there. And that's great. A lot of these guys are going to be counted on to be in the 2 deep. But if you have to get to a 3 deep, you're going to have to count on some young guys. If these young guys start to mature in the 2 months between September and November, then watch out, because, that's obviously the end of the season. You're fighting for different, bowl predictions, or fighting for a spot in the standings in the SEC. I really think that this has an opportunity to be a really neat kind of a special defense. And it's going to be, and that, as you mentioned, defense travels and defense carries you the first part of the year till you start to get acclimated with these freshman receivers and such.
Yeah, no question. So fun stuff. Once again, shout out to EA Sports. I think they nailed it on the defensive rating. They whiffed hard on the home field advantage stuff, but they did good on the defense. They redeemed themselves. For sure. So, Darrell, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Socials, DAP6410 on X, Instagram, Darrell Dapp, and then Wednesdays and Fridays with you.
Hey, 2 shows a day. If you missed our conversation from earlier in the day, be sure to check it out. And we'll continue 2 shows a day throughout next week. as well. So be sure you're subscribed, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite audio platform. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss an episode. Like the video. We'll see you soon. This has been Locked On Auburn.